you can't tell, but it was really close to getting intercepted by Vic Beasley. He's a pass rusher. He doesn't have great hands, but, I mean, you put a cornerback back there, and that ball's picked off. And that's a whole different game.
When I saw that they snapped the ball back to Brady, I went like this, and I said, we don't need to have what happened to the Seahawks in 2014 to us, but I think the only reason... I was trying to think of the reason why he did that, and I was guessing maybe he wanted to get a pass interference. I don't know if he was trying to get a call, but then he was so close. I think
that, maybe they thought Falcons wouldn't expect that, so he throw it. But yeah, it's game of inches because in the legacy of inches, because you're right. If he throws an interception there, and then Matt Ryan drives him downfield and the Falcons win, what are we saying? We're talking about
Tom Brady
he threw that pick six early in the game, and then he throws an interception in overtime, and he's great, but he's not better than Montana. Or you go, so it's like interesting how fine that is.
It's a real close line.
Yeah.
I mean, Vic Beasley was almost the hero of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just missed out.
I think you look at now after you move towards the parade. We're recording this on Tuesday. The parade's going on right now. The biggest thing now is going to be the off season and see what happens because the Patriots do have some people that they like. Donta Hightower, who is one of the biggest factors on the defensive side for New England's up. They don't know if they're going to be able to get him back or not. Like the tough decisions they've had to make. Getting rid of Will Fork 2 years ago, getting rid of Jamie Collins, trading him earlier this season. So it's going to be, but I think that's one guy they need to have back on the defense because he was a big anchor for the defense in the game.
It's an odd situation every time you enter the free agency with the Patriots because they notoriously don't give up big contracts.
No.
It's not a thing that they're into.
Look at their quarterbacks get paid.
It works.
They're pretty cold-blooded. They don't get attached. Well, think about Chandler Jones, Jamie Collins. They were arguably like the center of that defense, right? And they're both gone. And they're not that old. Like they're guys who are sort of in their prime. So they just when they see a guy and I don't know what the metric they use, like what it is, like how they evaluate players, but they put a value on someone. And even if from the outside you look at it and say this guy's a Pro Bowler, he's one of the top 5 linebackers or linemen in the league. To them, it's like, well, yeah, but we can get similar value here. Yeah. For a lot less money and a lot less salary cap space, and they just move on.
I think that is the do your job aspect of it too. It's like if I can find somebody, it's like what am I going to pay you all this money for? If I can find somebody that'll do your job for less money.
Yeah, and that's where you compare this dynasty to, like I'm old and I remember the Steelers of the '70s. Right? That's what I grew up with, and that team. You look at that defense, and they were all together for years. Or, the core of that team throughout the '70s, or the Raiders, or those teams, those great teams of the '70s and '80s, they pretty much kept a core together year after year after year. The Patriots, it's like it's cold-blooded. Like Jamie Collins, I was shocked when I was. I thought he was. I mean, and you find out after the fact that maybe he wasn't playing as well as our eyes were seeing, but
he was like freelancing a lot. He wasn't really following the plays.
So they don't just it's like mid-season they just trade him,
No, and I mean I respect the way they do it, and it's a big contrast as a Broncos fan, as a team that built itself through free agency to win the Super Bowl last season.
Right.
And I mean obviously we draft a lot of our own talent too, and we have a lot of that, but for the most part, we're one of the most aggressive teams in free agency every year, and it works out for us. And then you look at New England, who just doesn't like. And New England's not the only team that's like that. Green Bay doesn't. Doesn't really like to go out in free agency and give up big. The Steelers don't really do it. The Bears, a lot of the time, don't really do it. A lot of those like old school style teams, aren't really into that. But it's interesting. There's a lot of different ways to do it in the NFL, and New England's just been able to do it the best for the last 15, 20 years.
Do you think that this game also cemented, we talked about Brady's legacy, but Belichick's, do you think this puts him above any of the other coaching legends to make him the greatest coach of all time?
I think so. And I'm no fan of like his whole demeanor and having sort of covered Patriots games over the years. He doesn't give you much.
He's an interesting guy.
He's a fascinating guy. And people who know him say that there's a whole personality behind that facade that he puts up. But, how can you not respect him and be sort of in awe of what he's done? It's really pretty crazy. And, you can't tell me that he knew that Tom Brady, a 6th-round draft pick, would turn into this, right? So sometimes you fall out of a tree and you land on your feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
He has Drew Bledsoe gets hurt, and he's like, okay, well, we've got this 6th-rounder, and we'll go with him. He turns into Tom Brady, right? Nobody saw that coming.
Mm-hmm.
So, part of it's like luck, and you're in the right place at the right time. But he's a great coach, and he's got a great system, right?
Mm-hmm. I feel like it would have been interesting. You look back at the way like Belichick runs things, and like you look at now with like Jimmy Garoppolo trade talks. It would have been like, imagine how different the Patriots would be now if back then Bill Belichick said, okay, I already have Drew Bledsoe. Brady's shown some stuff, so let's trade Brady and see what we can get back for him, and then you end up with Bledsoe for the next 5 years.
They were paying him a lot of money at that point, weren't they, too?
He signed a big contract, yeah.
Gets traded to, was it Buffalo he got traded to after that?
Yeah, and he had a nice career. Yeah, he put up great numbers, but,
Good quarterback for
a long time, yeah.
And when you talk about the demeanor of Belichick, you watch that entire game the few times that they showed him, whether it was 0-0 or whether they were at that point down by 20, 25 points, and you just saw his demeanor he was just breaking down the plays. Like, he was just going down. You could never see any anger or anything showing. You could just see that he was just doing what he's always doing, keep on keeping on.
Yeah, he's singularly focused. That's his thing. He's like the ultimate, cliche football coach who just, immerses himself in a playbook, and he's always, thinking about ways to, come up with a new scheme or something,
Well, that about wraps it up for this special Super Bowl 51 edition of the Sports Corner podcast. I'm Tyler Madden. Thanks for listening. I thought that was good.